Okay, as folks are joining us this evening, I just have a few sort of quick logistical housekeeping type things to take care of, one of which Rich already did for me. So that's fabulous. If you look in the chat, thanks, Rich, you will see a Google form for those of you who might be interested in receiving CTLE credit for this evening's program. So go ahead and fill that out, and we will be in touch with you with your certificates and all of the things you need later this week. So that's right there in the chat. Thank you, Rich. You can also email Rich if you have any questions. So that's fabulous. Oh, okay. Let's see here. I wanted to also mention that we're gonna try to keep this all very short and sweet for you today. So we have some limited time for questions, but we will, I'll be monitoring the chat. So I would ask for those who have questions, just drop them in the chat as we're going along. We will try to get to as many as we can. For those we cannot answer tonight, we'll either try to answer some questions, have like a little FAQ type thing in our upcoming October newsletter, or I will figure out how to get to you all, or you can email me as well. So we'll make sure we get everything taken care of. And then finally, as this isn't a formal webinar here on Zoom, we're sort of faking it, I would just recommend that you set your view settings to speaker view, because that'll make sure that you have a full computer view of our presenters as we move through the evening. So with that, I'm going to wait just one more minute before I introduce our first presenter. We're really excited to be here with all of you tonight. And we'll also have this recording on our website. We'll upload it later this evening. All right. So to kick us off, I am going to invite Dr. Gretchen Sorin to get us started.
Thanks, Mary Kate. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. As Mary Kate said, my name is Gretchen Sorin, and I am the director of the Cooperstown Graduate Program, which is a museum studies program in upstate New York. Those of us that teach in the Museum Studies program have been working on New York State History Day for probably the last 25 years. And when we discovered that History Day was no longer going to be, when it was kind of up for grabs and nobody was really taking on responsibility for sponsoring History Day, we decided that it was something that we wanted to do. History Day has always been a really important part of what we do. Most of us who teach in the graduate program are historians, and we love history, and we want to make sure that History Day is available to all of the kids in New York State. So we are now the new sponsors of History Day, and the History Day event will be housed at SUNY Oneonta, which is very close to the geographic center of New York State, which makes it equidistant from Buffalo and from New York City. So we hope that you will all join us. We're excited to have you and to meet you and to have a long history at SUNY Oneonta. In the meantime, I would like to introduce my new friend who one of the things that you hear a lot from kids is history's boring. I don't like history because it's boring. And there are people out there, us included, that like to make history so it's not boring. And one of the people that works really hard and makes history really fascinating and really interesting is Don Wildman, who I've enjoyed in Mysteries at the Museum. So Don, you're on.
Thank you, Dr. Sorin. I'm really honored to be here. This is a really fun occasion for me. I am a New Yorker. I live in about an hour north of the city of New York. And for many years now. I've been working with the New York State Museum and others, and now with Dr. Sorin and National History Day. I'm on the board of National History Day, actually. So all this is very close to my heart and very exciting. So a good chance for me to say hi and to share a few remarks, which I have scribed out for myself. So here we go. Thanks for having me, first of all. As a history explorer in media, I am not a teacher, but I get to play one on TV. So it's a thrill to be here among my own, even if it's in my own fantasy. History education occupied the highest shelf in my household growing up with me and my 4 sisters. My father, George Wildman, was a high school history teacher in his early career. And he was introduced to that craft, the teaching craft, as a gunnery instructor in World War II. So education, and especially understanding our origins as a nation and as a people, were the most important stories around. Those stories, that was a big subject around our dinner table. It also served as the theme for every family vacation we ever took in our tent trailer, as my father ushered us up and down the Eastern Seaboard to Revolutionary War and Civil War battlefields and so forth. To me, history studies was an ordinary part of family life. I never understood then what I understood now, which was that I was given an extraordinary gift as a child. A firm grasp of our shared heritage is the kind of learning that never ends, but having a strong foundation, or even a shaky one these days, sadly, puts a student far ahead of the pack, far ahead even of the nation. I'm amazed at how many Americans lack a rudimentary understanding of what brought this nation to its modern era, let alone understanding the vast details behind any fundamental event. The work that you are involved in improves this circumstance daily by inches or miles, but you help those children, and by association, you help the country. So I and we commend you. Debate and diplomacy is the NHD theme this year, and in this spirit, I offer up a brief but juicy anecdote from my past. So stay with me, it's a little complicated, but the ending is really worth it. It's Christmas 1983. I'm a college student spending a year abroad in London. As it happened, my friend's father was a prominent diplomat, the US ambassador to the Soviet Union, a man named Arthur Hartman, who was a legend in the State Department. And I was very kindly invited to spend the holidays in Moscow. So now, for this son of a school teacher, a kid from small town South Jersey, this is the deep end of the pool. But I plunged in. In 1983, Soviet Premier Yuri Andropov may have died, but the Russians weren't saying so yet. Reagan and Thatcher had installed nuclear missiles in England and were pointing them straight at Russia. The Russians were lined up in the streets for bread and shoes. These were grim times. And into this strange gray world, I descended. The kitchen staff, I was told upon my arrival, were all KGB informants. Be careful what you say, it was whispered. We would be dining around town at different embassies. Journalists were to be avoided, please. It was all very hush-hush and buttoned up. And yet, a few days later, my visit was extended, and I was trusted to head for the British Air offices in Moscow, in person and alone. Whatever you do, don't lose this, said the ambassador's aide, handing me a paper airline ticket. We had to work really hard to get you into the country. I nodded and obediently set off. I would be taking the subway. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Moscow subways, but the escalators are ridiculous. And as I stepped onto this mountainous decline, I checked the CIA-issued map book for directions downtown. And as I opened the book in my hand, my ticket slid out the side. And as if by some preordained fate, it made a beeline directly for the step I was standing on and slipped down the side and disappeared. I was mortified. I dropped to my knees. I used my fingernails to claw at whatever small sliver of the thing that might be there, but it was of no use. I was suddenly a young man alone in communist Russia, crouched on a descending escalator, having in one idiotic moment committed a cardinal sin against the Soviets and the Americans. And I was about to become a diplomatic incident. Now, extracting myself from this dreadful circumstance is a more detailed story than I have time to tell. Suffice to say, the next 15 minutes involved a mysterious woman in sable, a station master in overalls, me nearly in tears, and a lot of commuting Muscovites standing confused on a giant escalator system that was shut down while my airline ticket, mauled and greasy, was mercifully retrieved. In short, I was saved by the KGB from utter humiliation. No debate about that. So that's it. That was my brief brush with diplomatic infamy. And now you have the chance to open this fascinating world for your students. Events of state, both light and dark. It's very cool territory to explore, and I expect they'll get a big charge out of the subject, and hopefully so will you. So good luck as your year embarks, and thanks again for all the great times you are about to make for these kids and what you're doing for everyone. Really appreciate it. And now I am honored to introduce the next speaker, CGP professor, a fabulous professor of history, Will Walker. Take it away.
Thanks, Don. I have my own Moscow story, but not nearly as compelling as yours. But I was there about a decade later through a State Department program. We went when I was in high school and stayed with a lovely family in Moscow, and we're still connected with them. The mother worked for Hewlett Packard, and so she spoke English very well. And I remember eating a lot of borscht, and it was very cold because we went in November. And I got really sick, but they were very kind to me. So a defining experience in my young adulthood as well, young life. So it falls to me to say a little bit about the theme, a little more about the theme, and also to talk about the research process. So I'm just going to bring up my slides here. Okay, everybody see those all right? All right. So if you remember nothing else from my little segment here, I would like you to encourage your students to be creative. Encourage them to think creatively and expansively about topics that relate to the theme, and encourage students to think creatively and expansively about sources, not just texts, but all kinds of different primary sources. So we know that the theme is debate and diplomacy. Debate, I think, is the easier word in that phrase. I think that we can all think of many examples of debates, and National History Day makes it a little easier for us by defining debates as formal or informal meetings where people argue opposing views, right? Some debates involve two sides, while others involve three or more perspectives. We're not limited here to presidential debates, right? To formal debates. There are all kinds of debates that can fit within this definition. But diplomacy is maybe a little more challenging for us as teachers, and for our students certainly, to wrap their brains around and think of topics related to. So National History Day has some wonderful resources on their website. I would encourage you to check those out, as well as the resources on the New York State History Day website. One of the things they have is a presentation that includes some folks from the National Museum of American Diplomacy, which I didn't know existed until I watched this video. And the way that they define diplomacy is as the art and practice of building and maintaining relationships and conducting negotiations with people using tact and mutual respect. As you might imagine, they do the history of the State Department, sort of formal diplomacy, but I think that definition there can encompass much more than just the formal diplomatic sphere and the diplomats like Don was referring to. Certainly they're fair game as well. But another definition, and this is from the National History Day theme book, says it so diplomacy in that sense is framed as an alternative to violence or violent conflict. Debate and diplomacy can occur independently or be intertwined. Certainly students could take one or the other, but there are many topics that bring these two together. And the History Day theme book poses two questions. Can diplomacy lead to new debates? Can debates lack diplomacy? Those are sort of prodding us right now in our moment of contentious, divisive politics, I think. So often the most difficult part of the research process is actually selecting a topic. We know, anyone who's worked with students on research projects knows that, you know, it can be a time of great anxiety and stress, right? When you say you can research whatever you want, some students say, great. Other students say, oh no, that I don't know what to do, right? So how can we help them through this process, right? Well, of course, we have many textbook examples of debate and diplomacy, and these are all fair game. You know, these are great topics, and there's more to be learned about them and understood about them. These are examples like the Constitutional Convention, right? Or the Lincoln-Douglas debates, or Wilson's 14 points. The kitchen debate, this is an image here, speaking of the Soviets, right? The famous kitchen debate between Nikita Khrushchev and Richard Nixon when he was vice president. The Camp David Accords or the Iraq War, more recently, we can think of those debates, right? These are all things that appear regularly in history and social studies textbooks. What do they have in common? Well, they're mostly in the formal political or diplomatic sphere, and they're mostly involving white men. Okay? So maybe we could think a little bit more broadly about topics, and maybe in a little more inclusive way, right? So some more inclusive topics, meaning they involve not just white people, but African Americans, Latinx people, Asian people, people with disabilities. Some more inclusive topics, ones that are still often in textbooks, might be Native American treaties, women's suffrage, abolitionism, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that ended the Mexican-American War. Of course, many topics in civil rights history could fit this theme. The UN, the ERA, the Vietnam War. And then finally, I've given some examples of more inclusive and perhaps less common topics that could work with the National History Day theme. So perhaps thinking about anti-colonial independence movements. India, I'm sure there's always Gandhi projects in History Day, but there are other ways to look at the Indian independence struggle. Ghana, right? First African country to achieve independence. Algeria, right? And its famous conflict with France. You might look at urban renewal, very intense debates around urban renewal, particularly in the post-World War II period, and the consequences of urban renewal, particularly for African-American communities in cities in the United States. Prison reform, right? A hot topic, you know, lots of discussion around reforming prisons, perhaps even abolishing prisons, right? Disability rights. Think of the discussions, the debates, the activism around the ADA and beyond the ADA, LGBTQ plus activism, and one very relevant to our moment right now, vaccination, right? Or public health more broadly conceived. There are lots of great resources that you can find on the internet. The National History Day website has good materials. Of course, the theme book should be your first stop, just to get a sense of, you know, how National History Day is defining the theme, and they do include quite a few suggestions there of different topics. There are also sample projects. These are award-winning projects from previous years. And I have to say, I was really inspired. I'm always inspired when I serve as a judge, and I've served as a judge for many years. And I often do the junior level And I'm just blown away by these projects that students in 7th or 8th grade do. So what I want to do now is I want to come out of my slides and actually show you some of these sites. So do you see my browser here? Yes, okay, great. So here's the National History Day theme page. And here is the theme book. I'm not going to scroll through that, but just so you can see it. And then here is that project example page. And a couple just jumped out, especially because the past few years I've judged websites. And so I was looking at the websites and I thought, wow, these are really, really good. Here's one that I was particularly impressed by. This is about alien land laws, which were laws that were passed in the West, California and other states, barring Asian Americans from owning land. They were particularly targeted towards Japanese immigrants, Japanese Americans, largely because of their success, particularly in agriculture, right, in the fruit and vegetable industry. So white Americans were jealous of that success and they wanted to hinder it. And so they passed these alien land laws. So this student looked not only at the alien land laws, but the effort to challenge those alien land laws. And so it's a nice, clear thesis here, right? Goes back and provides context about Asian discrimination, good visuals, right? A video here, unbelievably racist, stereotypical video, but it really gives you the sense of the kinds of stereotypes, the kinds of images that Americans were consuming of Asian Americans. Getting into the legal history and its connection to anti-Japanese sentiment, and so on and so forth. So really well done. And then just one other, and this one is from New York State. This is about, and I'm a cultural historian, somebody who loves music history. My father was a music teacher in a public school on Long Island for 39 years. This one is about an African-American band leader, famous in his time, named James Reese Europe. And again, nice look, nice clear thesis, really nice mix of media, right? Different types of primary sources, photographs, music, sheet music, film, all kinds of things. So really, kind of inspiring example there. Okay, let me take you back to my slides. All right, they have a helpful handout as well, Escaping the Topic Maze. I found it to be a nice, and I think we're going to share these slides with you so you can, you'll have that link there. If all else fails with a student, try this handout to assist them in their process of identifying a topic. Okay. As students are searching for topics and you're making suggestions, don't forget to think broadly and creatively with them. Encourage them to consider interdisciplinary topics, right? Connect history with music, art, science, technology, the social sciences, right? History Day is something that is a great experience for all students, not just the students who want to be historians, right, or history teachers. Students who are interested in science can find great topics. Students who are interested in music and art, wonderful topics that would fit with History Day. I recently had some of my graduate students coming up with some ideas and looking for primary sources, and a couple of them came up with really unconventional topic ideas. One group of students looked at UFOs and extraterrestrial life as a topic that could fit within debate and diplomacy. And there's so much there. I mean, not just do UFOs exist, but thinking about debates within the scientific community over what's the likelihood that we will encounter extraterrestrial life at some point or make contact with, right? Another interesting unconventional topic that students came up with was Johnny Cash at the Nixon White House. So Johnny Cash, this icon of country music, is invited to perform at the Nixon White House right in the midst of the Vietnam War. And Cash is against the war, but he has to do a bit of diplomacy, to express his objection, but not to offend the president. It's an interesting dance that he did there. Okay. So finding sources can be challenging. We all know we're the beneficiaries now of much more material being available on the internet. I always encourage students to start with librarians, however, and archivists. Some of the best research projects I've worked on, in fact, my dissertation came out of a conversation, which became my book, came out of a conversation with a research librarian, right? He said, well, there's all this stuff on the shelves over here. Why don't you look at that related to the Smithsonian? I was like, okay, cool. I looked at it and that became my topic. Encourage students to search online primary sources from trusted sources. Of course, the Library of Congress, the National Archives, the Smithsonian. And when you look at the Smithsonian, don't ignore the National Museum of the American Indian, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. They have tremendous resources, not just the National Museum of American History. The New York State Archives, the New York Public Library is just a fabulous place to find great primary sources. I've enjoyed recently some of the materials that the Center for Brooklyn History has put up. And of course, New York Heritage is a site that has primary sources from libraries, historical societies all across the state. So great places for students to start. One of the things that I always encourage my graduate students to do is to just browse primary sources. Even if you're not exactly sure what you're interested in, go right to those primary sources. There might be something in there that really grabs you. I think sometimes students spend a lot of time reading Wikipedia, obviously, or other secondary or tertiary sources, and they don't go right to the primary sources. Go right to the primary sources. And you never know what that will spark in students. Some repositories have put together primary source sets that make this a little bit easier. So they're organized by a particular topic. And the Library of Congress has a great primary source set that I'm going to show you real quick here. Sorry, I've lost it. Ah, here it is. Okay. So, Lincoln, Hamilton, of course, but baseball, Civil War music, the Dust Bowl, the Wright brothers, Japanese American internment, lots of great stuff. And similarly, the Center for Brooklyn History has a really nice page of links, and then also they have some of their own projects. So fabulous project that's been going for the past few years. Muslims in Brooklyn, could be inspiring to students. Long Island history, Brooklyn abolitionists, there's great stuff here, lots of primary sources. And also links to, going beyond Brooklyn Public Library and Brooklyn Historical Society, other Museum of the City of New York, for example, and other repositories, online repositories of primary sources. Okay, a couple more slides. So I want to encourage you, as you're working with your students again, to go beyond texts. Everything I've shown you, everything I'm sharing with you, those primary source collections include images, include sound recordings, include film, right? Objects our primary sources, right? The clothing that we wear, the buttons that we wear to protests, the signs that we carry, all of these things, they're all material culture that can be interpreted as primary sources. As we critically analyze, as we collect those sources, we want to critically analyze those sources, of course. Again, National History Day has a guide to student research that they did in partnership with the Library of Congress. I would recommend taking a look at that. Of course, the main crux of the process of analyzing primary sources is asking questions. That's what we learn in graduate school. That's what leads us to interesting insights and conclusions. We need to craft good questions, and they start with very basic questions like, who created this thing, right? Who made this picture? Who took this photograph? Who made this document? When was it created? Why was it created, right? We can do visual analysis. What do you see, right? Encourage close looking. You could spend time with your students looking at that Johnny Cash poster that I had, right? Or any photograph or image, and looking at the details and thinking about, what do you think about that? What would you like to know more about? Those all lead to research questions, right? Consider the perspective and the bias that any human being, any person is bringing to the creation of a text or something else. Right? Then you begin to craft research questions, more precise, more focused research questions, and draw preliminary conclusions, make connections with secondary sources. And where does that all lead? It leads to a precise and defensible thesis statement. Right? That's the goal. Right? It's not the only objective here, though, right? Yes, the best projects have a great thesis statement, and they have lots of evidence to support that thesis statement, and that's what we want, right? That's what we're working towards. But what else do students gain, right? If they think about the objectives of History Day, what are they, right? Well, yes, students will develop a historical argument supported by evidence, right? But we're also hoping that students will discover an aspect of history that fascinates and inspires them, right? Not just something that they have to do because they're going to be tested on it, you know, or put it on the college resume or whatever. No, right? You want to help guide a student to a topic that will fascinate and inspire them, right? You hope that students will find personal connections to history, that they'll, you know, perhaps see themselves represented in the history, or at the least find some sort of personal connection, right? Some relevance for them or resonance for them. Students who participate in history, we know, build essential skills for success in many fields, right? And this is not just about people who are going to become history professors or social studies teachers. Students who do History Day go on to do all kinds of things, and they use the skills that they learned and honed in History Day in those careers, in those professions. We hope that students will demonstrate the relevance of history to our contemporary world, right? That they connect past and present. They understand why it is that we care about this stuff, why this stuff matters, why we should know about it, right? How does it help us to have a better society? How does it help us to make better decisions in our world? And then finally, of course, we want students to be creative, and we want them to have fun, right? That they will understand that research is fun, you know, it's exciting, and it's incredibly rewarding in many, many, many ways, both personally and in a broader sense, societally. Right? It has great benefits for us all. So, happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Will. Yes, if anyone has any questions, we're a fairly small crew tonight. So if you know how to use the hand raise function, you can do that, and I can invite you to unmute, or you can go ahead and type out your question in our chat here. And we will definitely share slides and make sure that you have all of Will's wonderful information for reference in the future. Don't be shy. We're really nice.
If there aren't any questions, I'm happy to show some additional examples, things that I dug up, because I dug up quite a lot in the process of putting this together.
Any details on procedures for the state competition? That is a great question. A little less related to Will and his presentation. But yes, you know, I will elaborate a little bit later on our plans for April, which are currently to be held for the state contest to be held in person. And I'll share with you where you'll be able to find those updates. We are sending out monthly newsletters, as well as vigorously updating our website to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. But as of right now, high level, we'll be in person, and we'll be able to share more details on that very soon. So hopefully that's a good start to your question. Oh, this is another good logistical question. So are there still regional competitions prior to state with earlier deadlines? The answer to that, the short answer to that is yes. We will still be holding regional competitions throughout the state. Our website, which I will drop my email address and our website address in the chat before we're all finished. But you'll be able to find information, more information about the coordinator for your state. And again, as we finalize these plans, we'll be updating the website with more information about the specific information for each regional contest. You know, of course, the dates and things vary by region, and we're working really hard and as fast as we can, considering the many restrictions and uncertainties that still lie ahead. But the short answer to that is yes, and please make sure you're checking the website and that you're signed up for our newsletter as well, which you can do on our website. All right. It sounds like that might do it. Oh. From Susan. I know topics do not have to include both debate and diplomacy, but should we encourage students to do both? Will, I'm actually going to unmute you and ask you to speak to that a little bit. You did a little bit at the beginning of your presentation, and I think that's a really, really great question.
You certainly don't have to. But I got the sense in reading through at least Nationals materials that they were very interested in diplomacy, right? There's a lot of encouragement for that. I get the sense too that the last time this theme came around, students really struggled with the diplomacy piece and had a harder time finding topics related to diplomacy. So there's a good amount of encouragement around that half of the theme. So I think students are going to find a range of topics that fit within this theme. I think it is going to be harder for them to find diplomacy topics, but I think that ones that figure out a way to bring them together. I mean, I can't speak for what individual judges are going to think, but I think those are the ones that will probably end up being more interesting and more successful.
That's great. Thank you, Will. And Katie Boardman, another one of our fantastic CGP faculty members and museum educator extraordinaire, has posed this question, I think generally to be answered kind of in the chat by our teachers who are here with us this evening. So please feel free. She'd like to know if anyone's begun working with their kids yet for the 2022 program. This is actually a great question for me, for all of us, as we work to build out resources for you. You know, what is helpful, and where are you with your students? So definitely, please feel free to answer that question. Another good question for Will. Another example or two of a diplomacy topic that is not about formal diplomats. That is a really good question.
Why don't you answer that one, Dr. Sorin?
Here, hold on one second. Let me make sure we're all unmuted here.
Because I'm not sure what that might be. When I looked at debate and diplomacy, I really thought of diplomacy as, you know,
Right.
working as diplomats, and I'm wondering if that's what the expectation is, or if there are other topics that might fit there.
Yeah, well, certainly most of the examples that you find in National History Day are formal diplomacy. But diplomacy is a skill, right? And if you go back to the definition, the art and practice of building and maintaining relationships and conducting negotiations with people using tact and mutual respect. So, I mean, I think about the diplomacy that was required to pass the Civil Rights Act in 1964, the Voting Rights Act in 1965, right? Obviously, there's a lot of debate around that, but it seems to me that diplomacy implies a strategic approach to accomplishing one's objective, right? A strategic nonviolent approach to accomplishing one's objective. So, you know,
Would kids need to make the case that this was diplomacy in their, they probably would in their labels or whatever, or in their paper or whatever they're doing.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, with any project, you know, the
Sure.
students have to make the connection to the theme explicit, right? So what about the actions of these civil rights leaders or disability rights activists, you know, involve diplomacy, require diplomacy, right? When were there moments where they chose to do one thing or engage with someone in a certain way strategically to advance their objectives, right? It wasn't always, you know, debate, here's my side, here's your side.
Yeah.
May the best team win, right? It's sort of feeling out, assessing your adversary, and identifying those places where you can have mutual interest potentially, or you can exploit weakness. I mean, they're, you know, all of the skills of the diplomat, and they do break that down. That the presentation from the folks from the National Museum of American Diplomacy has, you know, kind of breaks down diplomacy in a really interesting and useful. Let's see if I can find it. Might take me a minute to find it, but
It's also a challenging topic for visual. It's not as visual as some other topics.
right.
I think Susan has a comment. Susan, you're muted.
I tried to unmute myself before, it didn't work. I just wanted to add a comment. The last time this theme was about, it's a difficult theme for the middle school students. And they did mostly debate.
Mhm.
And it's the high school students that really got more into debate and diplomacy, or diplomacy. I think for the young kids, it's too difficult. What I like much better this time, not that I remember what happened last time, after debate and diplomacy in history, this time when they say successes, failures, consequences, it leads you along the path for the analysis. And those words weren't used the last time. I don't know if there were any, or I just don't remember what they were.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
If I could share again very briefly, I can show you the graphics that National History Day included with the diplomacy presentation. So, you know, it breaks down the skills of diplomacy, right? Relational skills, you know, ability to collaborate, leadership, composure, operational skills, and informational skills, right? So I think any student thinking about people who are trying to accomplish some difficult objective in history, it might be useful to share this graphic. I mean, again, middle school students, it might be a little difficult, but I never underestimate them because I've judged a lot of middle school projects that blew me away. And then they also break down the tools of diplomacy. This is a little bit more, you know, what does a diplomat do, right? Somebody who works for the State Department. These are the different things that they do. But communications, meetings, travel, you know, knowledge exchange, these are all things that could fit, you know, go beyond the formal diplomatic sphere.
Thank you, Will. That is so great. We will be sure to link out to that from our website too. So I'll get that info from you. I am gonna just move us along in the interest of time and just kind of wrapping up a little bit here with some more information for all of you. Thank you to those regional coordinators who are with us tonight, like Susan and Rich, who are giving us some really fantastic insight about past programs and theme resources. We appreciate that partnership as we all kind of work together this year. So you all heard from me earlier tonight and throughout the event, but I'd like to more formally introduce myself. My name is Mary Kate Kenny, and I'm really so thrilled to be serving as your state coordinator this year. I am a graduate of the Cooperstown Graduate Program. I have a great passion for education and history, and I'm really just feeling very even honored to be working with all of you across the state with the graduate program and SUNY Oneonta to facilitate this program for you and your students. I was first involved with History Day as a student at CGP, where I had the opportunity to volunteer and observe the incredible students who put so much hard work into these truly impressive projects. I didn't have access to National History Day as a middle or high school student, and I can only imagine how this would have really informed my future in so many positive ways. It may not have taken me so long to get to discovering that my my career was going to be, you know, somehow connected to my love for history. So I want to thank all of you, all of the educators who are here tonight, for bringing this program to your students across the state. And we are really excited to do whatever we can to help you do that. So our goal is to support you and your students however we can. We're very hopeful, as I said before, for an in-person program on Monday, April 25th, 2022 on SUNY Oneonta's beautiful campus. And we're already really hard at work to make sure that this year's state contest is well organized and enjoyable for all of you coming. So we've already been touching base with our friends down on the main campus, and we will be keeping you as posted as possible about any changes and any updates that we receive about the status of the program and things that you really need to know. We are, those of you who have been with us for a long time know that we're working through a transitional year this year. So, you know, one of the great benefits of working with the Cooperstown Graduate Program and SUNY is this enthusiastic team of graduate students, pre-service teachers, and faculty, both from CGP, a lot of whom are here with us tonight, and those who are on the main campus. We're really lucky to have this collaborative work environment where we can bring you resources and aids and a fantastic, you know, day of program to really make New York State History Day as accessible as we can to all of you and to your students. We'll be working all semester on updates to our website, which is nyshd.weebly.com. And I am going to copy paste that right now into the chat. Oh, and as I'm looking, yes, thanks, Crystal. There are a whole bunch of you lovely regional coordinators here with us tonight. So thanks for being here. We are going to try to bring you as many research resources, opportunities for professional development and workshops. You know, it's already October, but we're really working hard to do our best to bring you some more opportunities to learn and get acquainted with the program if you're new. And then, of course, we'll be bringing you all of that really great logistical information about the contest. So please check back with us frequently for these changes and updates. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that you might have. We're here to help you and to answer your questions. On the website right now, we've tried to have the most important information like the rule book and the theme book and our new rubrics. So definitely take a look at those because they've been altered just a bit from the rubrics you've seen in the past. As well as information, as I shared before, about all of our wonderful regional coordinators. So we'll be updating all of this information on the regional contest throughout the semester as well. And we appreciate your eye toward the website. We also do, as I said before, send a monthly newsletter. So if you're not already getting it, go to our website. You'll see some instructions about how to get on our list. And that will include all kinds of updates and information, workshops that other regions are conducting, partners of ours, you know, things you might want to know about. So check that out as well. And then finally, in the vein of some upcoming workshops, I would like to invite you all to learn a little bit more about the New York State Association for Computers and Technologies and Education's upcoming Delaware Otsego EdTech Conference. So this is taking place this Friday, which is why I really wanted to make sure I mentioned this tonight, October 8th. It is an in-person workshop at Oneonta High School, but we believe they're going to be recording this and that it will be available for you digitally at some point in the future. And it'll feature a presentation about New York State History Day from some of our graduate students in our Applied Museum Education class. So when I say we're all working hard to make sure we get you the information and support you need, I really do mean all of us. And some of our students are here tonight too. So I will leave the web address, which will point you to the event registration page. It'll have a little bit more information there. And you can go ahead and check that out. Again, this is the kind of thing we would share in our monthly newsletter. So if you have events related to New York State History Day that are happening in your region, like Susan just shared in our chat. So that's fabulous. And the newsletter will go out before October 29th. So that'll be something that we include for all of you to be aware of. Reach out to me via email, and I'm going to type it in right now to let me know, and we can include those kinds of things so that all of our friends have the information and access. The other upcoming workshop that we have coming out of the state office is a new teacher workshop. So if you're brand new to the program, if you need a refresher because the last couple of years have been pretty crazy, please feel free to join us. It's going to be virtual, so it'll be totally accessible to everyone across the state. October 18th, that's another one we are promoting in our newsletter on our website. I'll make sure the info is posted along with the Zoom link. So please join us if you have colleagues in your school or in your district who you know might be kind of interested about learning more, but they're not quite sure where to start. Please encourage them to join us. And I will even go so far as to try to post a little flyer on our website that you can download with the date and time and a Zoom link. We'll be really excited to see everyone and to share just how easy it is and how fun it is to bring New York State History Day to the students in your classroom. So with that, I think we've answered a bunch of logistical questions this evening, which is great. And like I said, our website, my email address, please don't hesitate to contact me. No question is a bad question, and we just want to make sure you have everything you need. So reach out to us, check back to our website, sign up for our newsletter, tell your friends about New York State History Day. And then before we sort of wrap up and conclude this evening, I want to extend a very special thanks to Crystal Johnson, who coordinated our state contest last year. She is so amazing. She's been wonderful to work with, and she has been so lovely in transitioning us into this exciting new role as your state contest hosts. So before we conclude, I'm going to unmute Crystal so she can just say a few words. And I do see this comment about the recording of this session. It'll be on our website, either with a link to like our YouTube channel, or just hopefully I can figure out a way to kind of embed this. So keep your eye out this week. It'll be there, I promise. And we'll make sure that you have the slides as well. So Crystal, I'm gonna unmute you here and it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you for the last year and a half or so. The last couple of contests have been a really interesting experience as we tried to figure out how to go virtual during a crazy time, but we did it, and we did it thanks to all of the incredible regional coordinators, all of the incredible teachers across the state of New York. You have a very strong foundation for your program. I know the last couple of years have been a little rocky as we got through this transition. But our whole goal last year during my interim year was to find a great home for the program. And we had a number of different institutions that were very interested in hosting National History Day for the state of New York. And we feel like we found the right one with the Cooperstown Graduate Program. This is a fabulous team. And there are lots and lots of people with different areas of expertise who are going to be helping you and your students as soon as we get through this transitional period of trying to get everything rooted at the new home. I think you are going to be very, very excited about all of the changes that you're going to be seeing in the next couple of years, and all the various ways that you're going to get lots of great help coming out of the Cooperstown Graduate Program. So excited to welcome them to the NHD family. I know that they've been kind of on the edges of the family before for many years because they've been judging and they've been involved in the program in other ways, but now they're really going to be at the center of the New York State History Day program, and it's going to be awesome. Just one final reminder, as Mary Kate said earlier, just teachers, please do be aware of those new evaluation forms. I'm not sure if they're up on the website just yet, but do keep a lookout for those because there are some, minor yet significant changes in the new evaluation rubrics that you'll want to make sure that your students have the correct ones when you're using those at your school level. It has been such a pleasure to work with all of you, such a pleasure to work with the new CGP staff, and so can't wait to see what you all do. It's going to be the best program on the East Coast in no time. I just know it. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you for everything, for that lovely remark and for all of your incredible work. We're so lucky to have you as our partner. So it is 7:30 on the nose. I think, I hope that this was a good introduction, a fun way to kind of kick us off for the year ahead. And again, please feel free to reach out. Please check into our website where we'll also be linking out to those fabulous National History Day resources that everyone is talking about. We really want to try to be a one-stop shop for you all. So keep coming to visit us. Reach out if you have any questions. Again, Rich posted the link for credits, and thank you. And stay tuned for the things we're working on next. So thank you so much and enjoy your evenings. Thanks, everyone.